Hey folks, I'm Keith McGowan, the Outboard Dad, here to help you have a better boating experience. Today we're going to help dispel that myth of the best 2 days are the days I bought it and the days I sold it by continuing on with our Mercury Optimax that we've been working on. Whoever's been following it, I hope you've been enjoying it. I love the comments that are coming and about me not opening the vent for the oil tank. I love it. It's funny. I don't, remember everything and do everything either, but we want to be as thorough as we can be with these motors. So today we got some parts. We got water pump, I hope. We're going to open up the box that came from boats.net. These are parts that I buy that are OEM only. Very picky about that because I'm going to sell this motor and I want someone to have the best parts. I'm not against aftermarket water pumps or aftermarket parts. Maybe they're fine. But if I'm actually on my own motors, I've used some aftermarket stuff. Some I stay away from. I haven't had problems with Sierra or even some of the Amazon stuff for certain gaskets and stuff that are okay. But thermostats, water pumps, if I'm going to sell a motor, I want to have the best parts. So let's get into the box of parts that we have today. As you know, I like to have a clean surface to work on. So we're going to lay it out and make sure everything matches up first. Even though it's OEM, we want to make sure it matches up. We don't want to just slap stuff together. So let's check it out. Okay, so here's the box of parts we got from boats.net. Let's see what we got in the box. So here's one thermostat, two thermostats. We'll open them up and make sure they match up with these. Got our water pump. We'll make sure everything matches up with the old water pump. And we have a set of gaskets here for our Poppet valve. We'll line those up, make sure they work and they match up properly. And we also have a set of gaskets for our thermostats. So notice I did not remove the old gaskets yet from this Poppet valve. Let's say, for instance, they sent me the wrong ones. Doesn't look like it. They look to be exact, but we're going to open it up and see before I go scraping this all off. And what if I want to go out fishing today? Right? Then I don't have what I need. So I always wait until I get those parts. So let's open these up and see what it looks like. Thermostats match up nicely. I also saved this, left it the way it is to make sure I put the new gasket on the right way. If you see, it has a lip on the bottom of it. So I want to make sure that goes on correctly. So now I can match that up. Sometimes you'll buy an aftermarket gasket or thermostat and it just doesn't line up the same way and it doesn't look as nice and even as well put together as that. So we know that's good. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to save this little baggie with the part number on it. I'm going to put it in here in the old thermostat bag, again with the part number on it. Then I'm going to take the old thermostats and put them in that bag. I'm going to save them because they're actually not bad. They could probably be cleaned up a little bit. And in a pinch to get someone running, if they have a bad thermostat, technically you could leave a thermostat out too if you want to, but maybe to get through a day, but it's probably not a good idea. Manufacturers designed the unit to run, the motor to run at a certain temperature, and that's why they're there. So you can always have a spare set ready to go. So pretty simple, pretty straightforward. I'm just working the gasket around. See, I get it started on one side, and then I'm just working it around. I'm kind of holding with this side so it doesn't come off, and there it snaps right into place. So that's all set. Now let's check out our water pump, see what that looks like. I will not save the old water pump. It's really hard as a rock, no flexibility anymore. So this looks to match up. Looks good. So now we'll check these gaskets for our Poppet valve. And that's an exact match. So I can go ahead and scrape the old ones off of here. And we'll put them on with a little bit of sealer. I'm going to use that same weather stripping adhesive. I use that for almost every water pump, thermostat, water type. So let's get this together. We'll scrape these gaskets off. Now I want to be really careful because number one, I don't want to damage this diaphragm here. I just want to get the gasket off around it. I do want to clean it up, obviously. We'll do that. I also don't want to scrape the paint off because then it's going to corrode easier in those spots. So we want to take it little by little. Sometimes we can start peeling it and not even really scrape with the, just kind of get underneath it and lift it up. So it seems to be peeling off. Didn't peel off all the way. Rest looks pretty good. I didn't damage my poppet valve diaphragm there. So we're going to clean that up. We're going to put some sealer on there first, stick the gaskets on both sides, and then I'll put some sealer on the outside before we put this in place back on the motor. So we're going to head and take this screw out so we can clean around this all the way around on both sides. It is spring loaded, so you have to hold the back of it. Okay, so pretty clean inside. Poppet valve assembly is really in good shape. There's really not much to it. It's just a plastic. This is the actual valve part that fits into a rubber piece that's on the motor that, as we looked at, was okay. So this is nice and cleaned up now. We can get the gaskets on it and get it back together. Okay, so I just took a little bit of this weather stripping adhesive. I should put the cap back on. It gets tighter and tighter each time. And just stuck both gaskets, one on each side. It's a cork gasket, so it seals off nicely. I do see a little bit oozing out here, so I want to make sure I clean it up a little bit. Wipe that off on the rag, so I don't have excess getting into places that shouldn't have sealer. So I make sure it still functions, still pops in and out, that I didn't get sealer on anything important that might get stuck. So this is ready to go. We have our thermostats ready to go. Now we just need to put our water pump in. So let's do that next. To replace this water pump on our Optimax 135. So please like, subscribe, and send me any comments that you have. Love the comments that are coming. So I put a rag over this just to keep it clean while we were waiting for our parts to come in. So we have a flat side here on our shaft where our keyway goes. So I'm just going to take a little dab of grease, put it on there. Wipe it off of my gloves. I don't like to get grease on any rubber parts because it could start to deteriorate them. So see, our keyway now just kind of gets held into place. So now I can take my new water pump and I'm going to lubricate this shaft with just a little bit of WD-40, nothing crazy. This way it doesn't get hung up on me when I'm sliding the new one in. What I'm going to do here is, you see our keyway there, I'm going to face that straight towards me. And when you look at the keyway mark on my new water pump, I'm going to hold it right there. So now I know where my keyway mark is because I have it pinched there. And I'm going to slide it over the shaft. And now I have it pinched right where it goes. I make sure my keyway is lined up and doesn't move out of the way. Give it a little wiggle. And there it is in place. So now I'm going to take a little bit of WD-40, and it's a little trick I learned from an old timer. Not a lot, and just put it on the points here, just so when I put my cover on, I need to turn this shaft. So now I'm going to wipe the WD-40 off of it so that I can get a good grip, and I want to turn this clockwise as I'm sliding the new water pump housing on. I'm also going to take and put some sealer around the outside. This is very clean. I just really cleaned it up, nothing else. So it's in really great condition. I just stuck this back in here. This was up on our tube, which we're also going to do a test out at the motor. I'm going to hook my hose up and make sure we have water flow through after we put our poppet valve and our thermostats in. So again, this is pretty clean. It's a little rusty stain on here. We'll clean that up a little bit more just to make it look nice. But other than that, this is ready to go. Just going to put a little sealer on it. See, that cleans right up nicely. Just a little rust stain on it. I want to make sure it's dry on the surface. Going to put some sealer on there and slide this into place. So I make sure I hold this in the right direction. We've got some sealer on the bottom. Not too much. Actually, just did get a little too much. I don't want it to go inside our cup here. And that looks good. So now we can line this up. Slide it over. So it's going to immediately go right on our studs. And then, as I said, we're going to turn this counterclockwise while we're pushing down so that the pump goes in the right direction when we fire it up. And it takes a little bit of work to get it there. And now it's down in place. What I did was I cleaned up these threads with a little wire brush. I do like to put a little bit of marine grease on the threads just so it comes off easier. Same thing with the threads for when we mount the lower unit. I'm going to clean up the rest of those, but make sure I have grease on those threads. This way it comes apart easier next time it needs to be done for the next mechanic, because I'm always thinking about the next mechanic, and I'm also thinking about longevity for whoever purchases this motor. So now we have bolts in the same sequence to go back on the way they came off. They do have very small lock nuts that go on here. This is the ones we were showing you. That's the way they like to use it. See, I cleaned it up a little bit. It was corroded, but it has a locking mechanism on the top of it with a little composite material, like a Teflon maybe, that's in there. And then we'll tighten this down. We're going to clean up the rest of these bolts. You see here there's a little bit of corrosion. We want to clean that up. We're going to cover this all up with grease so that everything goes back together. This is the one that held the skeg on. We're going to clean that up, make sure everything's nice and clean, tighten this down, and then we'll be ready for a test run. So I'm trying to tighten these evenly. I don't want to tighten one all the way. I want to go one by one. And they are different sizes. This one's 1/2 inch. The side ones are 7/16. We want to make sure that our shaft still spins, that we didn't pinch something in there, and it does. We're also going to put some grease on the spline for the shift shaft as well as the spline for the drive shaft up top here.